I'm Beverly Cammy, and actually I'm celebrating the 50th anniversary of Woodstock.
All right.
And we had similar events. So I'm feeling very, very nostalgic. And I'm a film producer and screenwriter and many other things, and I've been doing it too long. But I'm here, and I'm very excited to be here, and I'm especially excited to be with the youth and to be with the youth leaders. And I am developing a documentary, and I'm working with, there's a wonderful filmmaker here, right over there, who pitched me the most amazing idea, which she's shooting next week. And it's a very exciting time. It's exciting in my life, and it should be as urgent as the situation is. I just think it's a time for all of us to be very productive and accomplish a lot. I feel that.
Kate?
Great. I'm Kate Brooks, so you may have no idea who I am, but you've probably seen my photographs in newspapers and magazines over the last 20 years. I was a photojournalist working for Time and Newsweek and New York Times and many publications covering the post 9/11 decade in Afghanistan and Pakistan, the invasion of Iraq. And at a certain point, I pivoted after an experience in Afghanistan, and right after that was a few things that happened in a very short period of time. I was embedded in southern Afghanistan with a medevac unit, and during this 10-day assignment, there was a drone operator who called in an airstrike on a group of children, thinking that they were building or burying an IED. In fact, they were playing in a field, and it left one child brain dead, who was taken off of life support a couple of days later. And there was also a countless number of British and American soldiers who were ending up double and triple amputees. And it was right after that I went to Kenya on a long planned vacation. And I was sitting in the Masai Mara looking out at the plains, and this herd of elephants walked by in the most beautiful sunset light, and they were just walking. And I was thinking about all this horror that I had just witnessed and documented. And it was the sight of this herd of elephants that reminded me that in spite of all the human destruction on the planet, there's still a natural order. And ever since then, I've been working on environmental and conservation issues. And I directed a film called The Last Animals that's about the global wildlife trafficking crisis. And I'm really sorry I'm not going to be able to show the trailer. But anyways, you will all have to see the film.
Yes.
But anyone who hasn't seen it, please see it tonight. It's fabulous.
I'm Michael Caine. I'm going to steal one moment of my time. Can we all give a standing round of applause for our day and for...
Well, thank you, Michael. But just remember one thing. Some people say our day, some people say air day. I like to say our day.
So that could be my whole description, but I'm the president and co-founder of EarthX Film, which is an environmental and impact film festival that takes place not only at Earth Day every year, or EarthX. We should have a drinking game where every time you heard EarthX today, you would just take a drink and none of us would be standing. But we're so proud to always support Chip and this event and Sally. And I basically, years ago, after losing everything in commercial real estate in the 80s, went after my passion, which was film, and got lucky, and the American Film Institute brought me in, and I found what I was supposed to do. And I always believed that storytelling was the way that we could change the world for the better. And so whether it was making movies, and I've been lucky to have a film at Sundance and won the special jury prize, TV Junkie, on addiction, and then that HBO picked it up as part of their addiction series. But all the while, I was learning that film could make a difference, and we created an educational version with the New York Times, and I learned education could fall in line and the youth could be involved in it, and I really saw the way they took to it. Started the AFI Dallas International Film Festival and the Dallas Film Society and the Santa Monica Film Festival and the Santa Monica Drive-In at the Pier and a lot of programs. But I love that moment right when it goes dark, when the audience doesn't know what they're about to see, and when the filmmaker's work is about to be put in the place that it's supposed to be put on a pedestal. And so I've always been lucky enough to be able to work with storytellers. And so we produce a 10-day event that takes place, 63 features and shorts this last year. We opened with Sea of Shadows. We had the wonderful 3D film Wonders of the Sea that we did. We were able to show twice with Jean-Michel Cousteau and the family. We ended with Watson, with Paul Watson and Leslie Chilcott. And we also had 49 virtual reality experiences. And we saw that took, because it's all storytelling, and it's all figuring out a way to motivate people and get them to take that next step of making change happen in their lives. And so we also have a youth online film competition that 99 entries and watching ages 12 to 21 make 1-minute short films that were about things that were important to them. And we're now expanding that to a national and international program this next year with some of the partners that are actually in this space. So I'm lucky to work with Trammell Crow, who's the co-founder of the festival, and every day is an adventure.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you all. And I know it's going to be a discussion really amongst yourselves with everyone listening. That's going to be a little harder given the circumstances, but I'll kick it off with, do you think that there are too many environmental films right now and too many film festivals? Or not enough films and film festivals? What do you think where do you think we are in that equation, and where should it go impact-wise? And I'll leave you to clean up the mess after that one.
Okay, now we're going to do some Hollywood magic, and now Daniel's going to morph into Chip. Now, you see that? Okay, I'll just back to the back.
It's all digital.
And here's our real moderator.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that Daniel just kicked it off with a great question.
Great question.
And why don't we just go right down the line? We'll start right here with you, Jean.
That was. Yes, Daniel tried to tell me a little bit in advance what he was going to ask to start, and I thought those two questions were amazingly important. Because in this panel, you have filmmakers, you have head of film festival, you have the new media, which is so important, and I'm kind of thinking that I represent the distribution side of all this, which means, you know, the guys and women who work very hard to make sure that the wonderful films, the wonderful content that we call it, is seen by the most amount of people in the world. And that is a very, very difficult equation. And it's changed. On top of that, the lay of the land has changed. You've all heard about the advent of Netflix and what that created. It's called SVOD rights, you know, or we call them the streamers. I hate them now, but the problem is we have to work with them because we cannot go back in time where it was great. You had a theatrical video, even a straight-to-video film was a victory. All this has disappeared because now it's the streamers. And so the question that he asked, well, that's going to be my answer. I'm curious to see what the other participants are going to say, but yes, I think there are too many film festivals. That's me. You know, when it comes to having your film distributed worldwide in the US and the foreign market, as we call it, the buyers, the worldwide buyers for each territory, we call it, each country, are the one who make the decision if that film is going to be seen by the people of their country, okay? And it's a very finite group of people. If they're not convinced that your film is going to make money for them in their territory, this film will never be seen by anybody in that territory. And that's awful, but it's the truth. That's what's going on today. Okay. So what the buyers, since we have to listen to them, this is the conversation, listen to the buyers because they're the ones who are buying or not, okay? And meaning that the film will be seen. They don't care about the billion festivals out there. They don't care at all. They care only for the top, okay, I'm going to say the top 50. Now, since we're talking about environmental feature films, you know, documentaries, we're lucky, we have a great festival. AREI-AREDAY Film Festival is one of the ones that they actually heard of, which is great, you know. and therefore they're going to look at the films that are participating at EarthX, you know, and there are probably a few other, not of your competitors, of your brothers' festivals, right? But there's so many. That's the problem, you know. So I would say I think there should be less festival, maybe bigger, the one, you know, bigger festival. As to are there too many environmental films being made? Ooh, that's you know, I'm French. I want to kind of, you know, surrender right now to the question, but the distributor, because I am in sales. Hell yes, there's too many. Okay, so I'm going to take a, you know, I'll say yes and yes, and I'll let the other people answer.
Yeah, so we're more of a technology platform. We're just one of the streamers.
We love you. We love you.
But we power a lot of media companies around the world, a lot of TV stations, actually 22 different countries we're in where we power TV stations. So these are like the main TV stations in the Philippines and in Indonesia. And so what we actually did was we created a content market and exchange in the middle, which is what a film festival usually is about.
Yes, exactly.
Because audiences are now global, and you know, film festivals used to be much more local, right? And now the exposure is global, and there are a lot of buyers everywhere.
Yes.
And well, flying around actually wastes a lot of emissions and gas, etc. Right? So it's not very efficient. It's a great event for the community, and so we are actually connections around the world where different platforms can actually get access to more films, and more films can get exposure to the global audience and not just a local audience. So I actually think there's not enough films, right? But there might be too many festivals, right?
Okay.
And there might be not efficient way to do it. And as a technology person, I look at trying to get it more efficient. So I guess that's my answer.
Well, no fool was I. I deliberately sat next to you because.
Stand up, please. Up.
Oh, for me, you are part of the solution. And having been in the studio system for many years, I made big Hollywood movies with major distribution, and it wasn't easy, and it's harder now. However, I'm excited because, first of all, I'm passionate about being the messenger for solutions to the environment, and I see, for me, the solution are the youth who are fighting for us. But the technology that you have is enabling me to make the kind of films that really matter. And we're talking about launching your documentary as an original YouTube documentary. And that, first of all, that's your audience, right? And there was one that Barbara Koppel did a few years ago on the young Gigi Gorgeous, on a young man who did his whole transition on YouTube, and then she was called in to make it into a documentary, which then had a premiere at Sundance and a theatrical release. But I think that your technology, you were telling me how you could help me actually blow out all these YouTube films that I want to do. First of all, it addresses the emergency, the now. I can't wait for 2 years for participants to put out a film. You know, we don't have that amount of time. We have to be able to have a technology that is immediate. And we started today. We shot what may be the beginning of a feature film with you interviewing Paul Watson. And you're starting yours next week that we talked about, and they'll go right up on YouTube. So I think it's really, really an exciting time. I don't think there's too much content. I think that with the new world and all the technology, and I just think that it's a great time to get as much out there as possible and address the emergency with a technology that will serve us all well. So that's what I feel.
Well, I
would say I don't think there are too many film festivals, and you also have to think about what a film festival is. There are certain film festivals that are really about buying and selling films, like Sundance and TIFF and Tribeca and maybe South by and, Michael, would you say is Earth becoming a buying market?
There was a couple of things that got picked up this last time, but it wasn't really the goal, but it evolves into that as the right people come into the room.
And then there's lots of festivals all over the place which are about people loving film and wanting to watch films because they care about issues and wanting to meet filmmakers. And I think actually film festivals are a great way to get your film out to the world and to get people talking about it, which documentary film, I don't know about narrative films, but certainly with documentaries, it's said that people primarily learn about films by word of mouth. So you need people all over the place talking about your film so that other people watch your film. And in the case of The Last Animals, we did an extremely robust festival circuit because we wanted the film to be seen by as many people as possible. And so we screened the film at a film festival in Cambodia, in Borneo, in Singapore, and next month it's going to be in South Korea. Like, to me, as somebody who's made a film about the ivory and rhino horn trade, that's incredibly important. This is an issue it's a global issue in some regions of the world. It's a bigger issue than others, but it's very important people get educated. And so I've kind of looked at the Film Festival Network as a great way to get eyes on your film. And when The Last Animals had its world premiere at Tribeca Film Festival, it was a really interesting time in terms of the sort of buying and selling market, because that year nobody bought anything out of Sundance. Netflix went on a spending freeze. Amazon went through a restructure in their documentary film department. And so there were a lot of films that year that everybody was a little bit like, what's going on in the doc film world? And I just kept screening the films because I knew we had a great film, and that if there was enough noise and attention and media around it, it would get distributed, and it did.
Bravo.
No, so I was going to say it's a hard question to ask. It'd be like, are there too many libraries? Are there too many restaurants? Are there too many environmental nonprofits? Are there too many laws? I mean, at the end of the day, it's about what the final goal is for everything. I would say maybe there's not enough great film festivals. There's not enough festivals that understand what they're meant to be and understand how to get the film and the filmmakers and the missions in front of the right people. That's part of kind of the marketplace mentality to the whole thing. And when he goes into marketplace, he's absolutely right. There's too many films competing for too few slots.
That's right.
And so that's really what dilutes the market and makes it difficult. But on the other hand, there's filmmakers who use film festivals to get it in front of the right people in the right market, and then they've got an impact campaign set up behind it so that they're making change with the movies that they're showing. So it's one of those where there's a lot of movies made. There's not a lot of great movies made. There are great movies made that are here and are represented by this group. You know, I watch probably 500 to 600 films every year, and I'm not one of those who watches, there's some who watch a lot more than that, and there's a lot of them that you root for people to be great storytellers. And I'd say that there's not enough education to teach people to be great storytellers. There's not enough time to allow them to become great filmmakers, because they're sort of pushed out there and like they got to nail it on the first one, and then if the second one doesn't work, then you're out. And so it's the filmmakers who understand, like the Jeff Orlowskis and the Louis Sahoyases and the Kate Brooks and, you know, our whole team here. They understand that the point is to get their movie in front of the right people so that that's going to create the change that they want. And that's the exciting part, because there are a lot of great portals, and we all track Sundance. At the end of the day, you know, the whole market is based on what great films got in Sundance and which great films didn't get in Sundance that are available, that And then at the end of the day, because everyone will go, my movie got in Sundance, so I'm made. I've had a film in Sundance, and we did okay with it. But less than 10% of the films that play at Sundance get a distribution deal. So if you made your movie and the goal was to play at Sundance, congratulations. But if your goal is to get it sold or to get it in front of people, you need to be creative and create partnerships and work with other people. So that's what I would say is, it's really about what's your goal with the movie, and the film festival can be a tool for it. And if you're smart, it is, but it shouldn't be the end goal.
No.
And there's a lot of great movies out there too, but at the end of the day, the best movies are the ones who understand how to get their story in front of the right people.
Yep.
Great, thank you, Michael. Well, I mean, brilliant comments everywhere, and so now I'm morphing again. So now I'm taking off the AREDAY hat and the moderator hat, and I'm putting on the producer hat. So I also am a filmmaker, and I've got a website called AmericanSpiritProductions.com, and it has our filmography up there. And there's probably 12 or 13 films in our history. The first one I shot in my career was shot right here up the slope, called Jazz Colony. It starred Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter. And Michael Douglas was hanging around, and we said, well, do you want to narrate? And he said, great. So he was in my first film I ever did, and that kind of freaked me out, so I had to get somebody more experienced than I to direct him when he came over to the set. Anyway, that's just like my little quick background on me as a filmmaker. But in terms of the question, should there be more or less film festivals, I want to point out that we have one here called Impact Film, all caps. That's a brand that we like. And I dare say that all of the films that we've listed in the program that you've all seen, these are all excellent films. One of them made by somebody sitting right here on the panel too, actually. We have two films of these folks, The Last Animals, and yours is here somewhere.
Once Upon an Island.
Once Upon an Island. But all of these fit the criteria of impact film. And impact film needs to do what it says. It needs to impact the consciousness and the thinking of those who are seeing it in order to effectuate some kind of a positive action or change, in my view. And so we're trying to encourage a number of impact films to start right here, and I think a couple of them have actually been birthed as in the last couple of days. That's what the AREDAY platform is about. That's why we do the Impact Film Festival. Michael and I have been discussing ways that we could possibly collaborate with EarthX. We would like to strategically move impact film out, to places around the country where at the exact right time, for the exact right reason, a group of the exact right people can see it in order to accomplish the goal. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to point out that I'm in favor of, one more film festival. On that particular note. So no Q&A yet, sorry. We'll get to that. Hold your questions. We'll be able to do that. So I'd like the panel, putting back my moderator hat now, to talk a little bit about how it is that that your work actually is changing the world. Okay, and maybe we can start with Rex, and then I'd like to hear from the ladies, and then the two gentlemen.
Yeah, so for us, I actually started helping a lot of filmmakers 15 years ago when online craze just started. We had a platform called Dave TV, and we had helped a lot of filmmakers, amongst them Participant. We helped Inconvenient Truth, Syriana, those types of movies. And that was actually the beginning of the online media start. That was when it wasn't fast enough to stream video. iPhone didn't even come around until 2008, right? The social media at the time was MySpace, right? So, and Facebook was still on a Harvard campus, right? So that was the very early days. And in the last, that's what I would call Generation 1.0. And at the time, we powered about 50% of Hollywood. We did 4 of the 7 major studios. We did all the reality shows, but it was very early. Move ahead to now, today, I think we're in Generation 3. And in Generation 3, now you have prevalent social media. In fact, millennials, talk about the young people, millennials don't watch TV. They're going to movies less, right? So they're not watching through traditional media platforms, right? They're watching online and on mobile, right? So online and mobile is very important, and the way you get things out, and we were talking about this before, is really social, right? So social is where a lot of people live today, right? So, you know, just like we had started online video and tried to reinvent that 15 years ago, today we're about taking social and also the idea that everything is now global. There's no borders anymore. The internet gives you a reach of everybody around the world, and the mobile phone is introducing new users who never had a TV, never went to a theater, right? But now their first device that's connected them to the world is social media. And I'll just give you an example. In Vietnam, 3 years ago, all you had for video was the TV station, which is run by the government, which is a communist government, right? And 3 years ago, YouTube came in. And unlike China, the government allowed YouTube to come in. Today, Vietnam is number 7 on YouTube for volume of video. And the number of videos that people watch there in a given month is 193 videos a month. Compare that. That's per capita. That's everybody. Man, woman, child, grandparents, everything, right? And compare that to the United States, which is around 50, right? So they watch 3 times more videos online than we do. But a lot of them didn't start with, they didn't have a TV, right? They don't have that many videos there. Their first place where they're both connected to the internet, have a high resolution screen, right, and are able to watch is basically a mobile phone, right? And that mobile phone's getting faster. And so that's what's enabled a lot of distribution changes, right? And I think that that's really where we're going from here. And so what we've been trying to do is build a platform that helps filmmakers, helps charities, help NGOs, help influencers. We think everybody is now a media company, right? If they had the right tools and the right platform to push that out, and that's really what we're trying to do, is revolutionize how content is distributed and how it's shared and how people watch, right? And get it, and not really look at what's the right platform. In other words, should you put it on film? Should you put it on TV? Should you put it on a phone? We're about get it to anywhere where people will watch, and that could be a phone, that could be a theater, right? But that's the distribution today. It's an omni-channel world, and that's really what we're trying to enable.
Good. Nice. Well, and Rex, you've been at it for so long. I mean, if you're going back to MySpace days, and who here had a MySpace page besides me? Okay, and I didn't know when Facebook came out, you know, which way to...
Still has one.
Well, I still have my 82 Ford pickup, but I only start it once a year. Anyway, but so, but it just goes to show you, and now with all of the digital multi-platforming and social media, marketing, I mean, it's a brave new world, isn't it? And movies really don't happen the way that they did anymore. I mean, it's Netflix, it's YouTube. These are the dominant players in the space.
And it's about word of mouth, right? So we were just talking about that, where PR, like she got her film in, I think it was, what was the publication? There was a few publications.
I don't know, we got so much publicity. It was a lot. You know, throughout, you know, Glamour magazine. No, it was I have like sort of like a spreadsheet that you tracked all the press that the film got, and it's extensive. It's The Economist, People magazine, The Times of London, The Washington Post, and it goes on and on and on. Newspapers in Taiwan, like in Hong Kong. It was.
But did it drive, the traffic or what you wanted?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And that's what I was trying to say is that PR and media isn't the way it used to be. And I like to say that traditional media, getting into New York Times, Economist, is about credibility more than it's about business. Right? In other words, if I'm in The Economist, the New York Times, I'm credible, but that doesn't drive business to actually the film because the timing might not be right either. That article might be read and they don't have access to that film at that time, so people are reading a lot of articles. Whereas social media, that's right at the point where people are actually sharing, so it's a lot of word of mouth, and it's also now the point of where consumption is. So if they actually see it, they can actually click and watch it within a few clicks versus, oh, I gotta wait for the film festival to come, or I gotta wait for it to go into movie theaters, I gotta wait for it to go on Nat Geo, right? Or I don't even know it's there, or I don't subscribe to that platform, so I'm not gonna see it there, right? And so the filmmaking process and distribution is actually changing, and I think that we have to be adaptive to how user behavior is.
If I can add one quick thing. I was always, at the beginning, I was talking to you about,
Stand up, please.
sorry. I was talking about, that the obstacle, to have the movies seen by millions around the world. I told you, are those buyers, whichever they are, whichever rights they buy, and worldwide, okay? It is true, it's actually a good news, that now they're paying attention to number of views, social network, they look at this, of course, so that's keep on doing what you're doing, and filmmakers, get those views going, because that gives a guy like me some more ammunition to convince them, to buy the film. So,
Right, so there's distribution, and that's a very specialized part of the film industry. And there's domestic and there's international, and there's lots of ways to finance films. It's one of the most complicated things going. Beverly, would you, or Michael,
I'll let Beverly, then I'll hop in.
Well,
stand up, please.
as much as I love the whole new world of YouTube and promoting.
You gotta catch a plane, so thank you.
Is it something I said?
No, all right.
No, but as you know, filmmakers are always jetting off all over the place, and now we're showing you what that looks like. So,
We're trying to catch the last flight back to LA. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Good.
Anyway, I still, I'm a storyteller, and I'm a narrative screenwriter, and I have one passionate project that I'm working on now that I will make very soon, which is the rescue of a whale, Humphrey the humpback whale, who was beached in San Francisco Bay in 1985, and nobody ever knew how Humphrey was rescued, and now everyone will know because I wrote the script with the woman who rescued Humphrey. Having said that, I have studios waiting for me to come in with the package. I am not going to go in with just the script. I'm going to have a director and some talent attached, so I have some control over it. But in terms of this, what we're talking about, Chip, in terms of the challenges of distribution, it could go right to Netflix and never see the light of a theatrical. So I've been exploring, it's really exciting. I'm exploring what he does with all his platforms, but also embedding the new technology into the films, and also planning the distribution before I even make the film. And one of the most important aspects, I think, is every film that I certainly want to make has a purpose. It's an impact film, and this is a call to action, and this is about empathy. And so I want to use all the technology that's available, VR and MR and AR. I'm designing a game that will go with the film, Saving Humphrey. And I have a VR company working on some VR that will be in all the lobbies of the theaters. And, it's exciting because it's all available. But I think if you really want to make a mark, especially with an expensive feature, and have some control over your distribution, I think you have to think this way, or else I am anyway.
it's a brave new film world.
So, thank you. Thank you.
You asked about a film with impact. We do a lot of screenings at schools, and you really get a sense with these screenings where we bring the movie into the schools that it affects them. And I think of a film called Straws. How many of you know that single-use plastic straws are a bad idea, right? They're bad for the environment. But how many of you knew that 3 years ago? I mean, this is something, well, there are a few of you. But for those of us who didn't know, a little film like Straws that we showed in different theaters actually impacted us to the fact that it educated us, it educated the people we were showing. We could then use it as a tool to go to restaurants, we go to different groups. We ended up going to a theater chain. We went to a few of them. Alamo Draft House moved off single-use plastic straws and moved into paper straws. It's a nice sized chain. Studio Movie Grill we went to, and they had seen the film, and we said to them, you know, we'd like for you to not use single-use plastic straws, and they said, we can't. That's the color coding we need to be able to replace the straws. And so, I mean, replace the drink. So if we don't have that red straw, we don't know it's a Coca-Cola. So we said, is there any way? And they actually went off. They didn't get back to us. And then after a while, we were, at the end of a year, we committed to at least eliminating 1 million single-use plastic straws. And we were at about 150,000. And Melanie Yonks, who works with us, was really depressed and came to me and said, I don't know. I said, don't give up. Don't give up. We can still do it. We're still showing the movie. We're still working out there. Studio Movie Grill called up and said, you know, we figured it out. We just don't put plastic straws in our water anymore. And so that's already saved us 1 million straws. And it'll save us 4.2 million straws by the time the year's over, and we'll have saved $27,000. And so that's one little chain who that movie, because it educated us, and we could use it to bring to somebody else, then created change. And I think that's when I'm talking about getting the film in front of the right audience. And I don't mean this insulting by any way, and please don't take it that way, but we're the choir. And that was something that came up last night. We're the ones who are woke. We're the ones who get it. And the reality is, what I love about our screenings in Dallas is about 60% of the audience is not. And so they're the ones who came because they trust us to show great movies. But at the end of the day, they're the ones we're trying to move the needle with. And so a great movie, a film that it can be a simple, one singular message, can do so much good. We were able to be a part of showing her film with the Department of Justice, and that was where that film needed to be. And so that's the fun part of it, is all these movies you get to show them. You think of Louis Sohoyas and The Cove, which, you know, 86% reduction in the amount of dolphins that are killed in the coves every year. You know, those you can actually look at it.
One cove.
One cove.
The bad cove.
Yes, the bad cove. And so that's the thing, race and extinction. My only big thing we didn't get in this topic is, how do you end your movie in a way where people go, oh, that's what I should do. And that's the challenge for filmmakers and for distributors and exhibitors and everyone else, is how do you make it so the moment they step out of the theater or their experience, they're going, oh, I should donate, I should join, I should be a part of that movement.
I should text that number.
Yeah, I should text that number. That's the fun opportunity for all of us, is how do we hook it up to the next level impact?
Right, and that goes to the point of, you know, you and Trammell and I were all involved with helping Louis with racing extinction, and we made a deal with Vulcan, and they put a bunch of money out there for the educational rollout, and yet that really wasn't as we'd hoped for. More in terms of, like you're saying, when they leave the movie theater, what's the action items, what's the sign-up sheet, what do you do? Well, how do you do it? And so that's a huge piece that I think what Rex is talking about also, where these multiple platforms and this new marketing can really come in effectively. Hey, please.
So yeah, for me, The Last Animal was always about really making an impact, which has a lot to do with why we screened at so many festivals. But also, you know, we've translated and dubbed the film into a number of languages. So most recently into Swahili and Lingala. Lingala is the national language in DRC. And what was I going to say? And also done strategic screening. So, you know, from the time that the film came out, there was a pending AREI ban in the UK, in Taiwan, Singapore, and so, you know, we've done screening for the UK Parliament, EU Parliament, and really trying to get the film in front of decision makers. And we also did this. There was an event that the former Attorney General hosted. It was a wildlife trafficking forum last October, and it's something that actually came out of AREDAY last year, thanks to Ron Maxwell. I don't know where he is right now, but the Attorney General brought together the CIA and the FBI and the NIA, Homeland Security, to talk about wildlife trafficking. And it was the first time that all of those people had been in the same room talking about these issues. And it happened to also be the day they caught the bomber last October, so it was all quite dramatic. He came in, made his opening speech, said he had to go deal with the bomber, and came back after a little while and said the bomber's caught. Oh my goodness! But it was, that was, I think that had a lot of impact. But that's not enough, because laws come from people, and people have to support them. So the other thing we've done, which the good thing about not having a screen and being outside, is that you should all have cell phone coverage. So if you can pull out your phones, and I'll have you do, if you text you have to text last animals to 52886.
Then what happens?
528.
Why don't you do it and find out?
Well,
I want to know what's
Yeah.
Not the.
You can do it together.
One word?
Yeah.
528.
Sorry?
52.
52886.
2 words or 1 word?
One word.
1 word.
Last animals, one word. It's phone to action.
Yeah.
It's already programmed.
So it's a call to action.
Yeah, it's a call to action. So if you click on that link,
1 word or 2 words?
one word, you can do it in 2. It should still work.
Nice. Take
Okay.
action.
So it says, take action for the planet's last animals today. Click here to support legislation.
Part of the Grammys?
Sorry?
Part of the Grammys?
Part of the Grammys?
Well, I have a Grammy thing that has the same text number.
Yeah, it's phone to action is the phone number that you're texting to.
Okay.
So
Also,
then,
it's a generic.
It's not generic. It's the phone to action number. But depending on what word you text to them, you link into different campaigns.
so on the site now, you put in your zip code, and it will connect you with different pieces of legislation, federal or state, that you can support to help the last animals. And when you consider that there are 40 states plus Washington, D.C. that still don't have AREI or rhino-horn bans, and that somebody's currently trying to overturn the AREI ban in New York State, saying it's unconstitutional. Yes. Yes, this just came out like yesterday or the day before. That's very important. There's an AREI ban. So with the text number doesn't work for foreign campaigns, but on our website you can go to Take Action, and there's all these global initiatives. So there's a pending AREI ban or movement for AREI ban in Canada that 450,000 people have signed a petition, and then we've been partnering with the NGO that's been leading that campaign with follow-up emails that go directly to Catherine McKenna and Justin Trudeau, etc. And then the EU, there's a pending AREI ban. 34 African nations have called on the EU to suspend the AREI trade. That still hasn't happened. But things are changing. Singapore passed the ban last week. Hong Kong has passed the ban since the time this film came out, and we spent a lot of time in Hong Kong screening and campaigning. So, it's a contribution, certainly, a small part, but played a role in that. And that's, I'd say that's one of the biggest things that we've been pushing for. And the fact that Minnesota passed an AREI and rhino-horn ban a few months ago, really shows how much things are changing. Because the first AREI ban in the U.S. was in 2014. So it's great. There's a lot to support, and you should all support.
yes, and if anybody has not seen Last Animals, you have to put it on the top of your list. You just have to. It's that good. It's that dynamic. Thank you, Michael, for bringing it to EarthX. I met Kate there, picked up the ball, got her to AREDAY last year, told her, and where were you, Borneo or someplace?
This year I was in Sumatra not long ago.
Right, somewhere down there, and said, got to come back again, and here she is, Jamal.
About Kate.
Yeah.
Stand up, you got to talk. We're going to our Q&A now. If
I went
anybody
to a scary special meeting at the Department of Justice about poaching, I'll say, and there were a lot of special people there. And Jeff Sefcins must have come in and out of that room 5 times. There was one filmmaker, her, that was there representing us. And Earth Day is April 22 to 26.
And is Ron Maxwell here?
Hearn Carthage.
Take a drink.
Ron's not here? Okay, because he really has been. He met, this is the power or the purpose of our day, I should say. He met Kate here last year. Ron made, if anybody doesn't know, he made Gettysburg. And, this is a $60 million reenactment of what happened. And everybody should see that too, by the way. It really is. If you want to know what war looks like, especially the Civil War, that's a lesson for the learning. But anyway, he did that, and then he met Kate, and he's been very, very active on this issue, helping you in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else. So, and I met him on Trammell's boat, so let's see how this all stuff kind of works together. At any rate, we want to tell you, I just want to make an announcement here, and we're not done yet because we want to have a Q&A. But for everybody whose stomach is rumbling because we haven't had enough food so far in our day, what they've decided to do is feed us upstairs in the restaurant, the buffet. So we're going to continue our programming up there. I think that we have to wait a little bit, and we're going to just continue our rolling out. And so I know that Andrew is going to speak, and so we're going to go through, and we're going to end our day the way that we were planning. It's just not going to be in this flooded out venue. So a little segue there. Piece of building. Well, is it a question or is it?
No, it's just a statement. Short, very short. I just actually really like this outside. I think it's totally beautiful.
Yeah, and then it'll get dark, and you won't like it so much anymore. But right now it's good,
Really quick. No, I understand, but I just wanted to say this is really beautiful, and I don't know if it's because I'm just sitting right in the front, but I
Most part of it.
But if you have to have a fire at a flood, this is the way to deal with it.
Okay. So
big backlift.
the gods have blessed us at our day with this wonderful outside venue. And we're all really digging it, and I sure am, and I would just as soon stay out here, for the rest of it as well. But I just wanted you to know that that's what we're going to do as far as the dinner, and we'll go upstairs. We're not going to have microphones probably, but I think we can still do what we're doing, and maybe we will finish it out here. I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys. We can take a vote. I don't care. I just wanted you to know that you're going to get fed, and it's going to happen at 7. And it's going to be upstairs. So they've sorted out the issues. Okay, let's go back to the panel. And I see we have a question over here.
Yeah,
That was a commercial break, by the way. We have that.
Well, my question is not so much for you guys because you're wildly successful, but for the young filmmakers, how do they get paid? How can they get paid? How can they raise money to do environmental films and make an impact down the road?
How much does YouTube pay?
Well, if I think the new tech, I think being able to use this to make, I think being able to start making films this way, I'm not such a purist because some great filmmakers have made films on the iPhone. So I think it's a great time for young filmmakers to do that. The only problem is, and I judge student films at several film festivals, the only thing that I worry about with the new technology is there's not enough emphasis on storytelling and writing. And I've taught screenwriting. So I think it is very important for young filmmakers to at least learn how to write a script. And then they can start this way. And then use all the platforms and everything we've been talking about. I think it's a very exciting time for young filmmakers. I had a very inspiring experience. After Katrina in New Orleans, I was mentoring some graduate students at NYU, and they wanted to do something significant, something to help the young people in post-Katrina New Orleans. So we raised money, and we brought video cameras. Now, if we had iPhones back then, it would have been a lot easier. But we went down and we gave a crash course in how to use the video cameras. And then these kids went home to no homes in many cases, and they they shot the most devastating film of their experience that they were experiencing at that moment. And then we spent a lot of time editing it and with them and taught them editing. And they even picked the title of a gospel song, Wade in the Water. And I just wish that, you know, it was made now, because with social media it would become phenomenal. But it was, to address your question, that was then, this is now. So, you know, something like that could be achieved in a much easier way and have a lot more play. But anyway, that's what I think.
So, I talk to a lot of filmmakers about this, because filmmakers don't make money. So young filmmakers won't make money either. And I hate to say that, I don't want to break anything, but the Sundance did a report not too long ago, and they said there was about $3 billion worth of independent films. I'm just going to step right here. There we go. $3 billion worth of independent films that were created, and the return on investment was about 2%. So the thing I'll say is the people who make that 2% return on investment tend to be the same people who make the return on investment. So for one thing, I advise, if you're going to make a film that someone wants to purchase. So right off the bat, or find someone who wants a film made, so that way you get paid making that. But we talk to people about, there's 3 kinds of returns on investment that you can make. There's the internal, the external, and the eternal. And the internal rate of return, so when you talk to investors, and be really honest with investors, because the best thing you can ever have is somebody who invests twice or 3 times, because usually they get so burnt after the first time because it wasn't laid out correctly, and people always have these great expectations of, if you give me $1, then I'll give you $1.20 back after I sell it. You hear the 20% return on investment, you see it in package after package after package, and that's not, they can't control it. I mean, if Spielberg can release a movie and lose money on that movie, then you know that it's not fixed. The audiences can be fickle. A film that, for instance, was coming out by Blumhouse 2 weeks ago about hunting sort of these people was pulled and will be shelved forever because of the mass shootings. And that's happened a few times. It just happens. So the internal rate of return is I give you $1 and I get $1.20 back or something. Like, money is important to me, and that's fair and it's fine because it's your money. There's the external rate of return, means I want to support you because I believe in what you're doing. You're a filmmaker who I care about and I want to see succeed, and I'm going to get in there, and maybe if I get some money back, great, but I'm really doing it because you might also be my cousin, my aunt, my uncle, or there could be a cause that means something to me, so I want to get behind that cause, and I want to make a film about, you know, protecting wildlife or other things. And then there's the eternal rate of return, and that's the sort of good you do for the planet beyond you. And so if you can approach people and go into the equation, in a lot of the youth films, their time, and this isn't totally accurate, but people might say that their cost per hour is less. So that a filmmaker gets paid a lot of money, you know, to get them to make a film, it costs them a lot of money to make it because their time's worth a lot of money. And whereas youth, they have this unbelievable energy to tell these stories and to get them out there and to make a difference. And that's what I've seen from the film entries we get. And so whenever you talk about what kind of pay they can get, if it's about paying for where they live or paying for what they eat, that's very different than the fact that they get paid by they make it a better planet. And so that's my take, is that, you know, they have great opportunity, and because they have the skill set that we didn't have. Dennis Hopper, we gave him an award a long time ago, and it was Dennis Hopper, and he gets up there and he's doing this whole speech about, you're all going to be filmmakers, and you're going to shoot your own movies, and you're going to edit your own movies, and you're going to put them out on your own channels. And he was right. He was right. That's where we are now. It's just now about figuring out what's important to you to tell that story, to invest that time, to be able to get that out, and how do you get it in front of the right people.
Cool.
That's my long spiel.
Wow, you got to meet Easy Rider? Wow.
But he directed one movie, only one.
Peter Fonda
I got
just
a made
died
for
the
him,
other day.
actually.
He died yesterday.
Oh, well, let's all send up a prayer for Peter Fonda. He was such an incredible guy. And that's probably a great way to bring this panel to a conclusion in the most bizarre. No crosstalk. So we're going to bring this to a conclusion because we have our next speaker, and we've run out of time. And the fact is that this is the most bizarre AREDAY that we've ever had. And we have also one of the most powerful AREDAYs that we've ever had. We'll save these comments for later. But in the meantime, I'd just like to have, maybe one last statement for each of the panelists to address, the importance of filmmaking and I'm going to say climate solution, because that's what we're focusing on here at this summit. So maybe we can have a rapid response round. And you don't have to even stand up. You can just speak.
Well, I just, I keep repeating myself, I think, but this is the most important time for all artists, for anybody that is a messenger. And if we don't respond to our call, then we are derelict. So, I just think, again, that we, as messengers, as storytellers, we can do it. We have the technology, and I'm not worried about anybody's bottom line. I just think we can just get out there and do it, and we must get the message out there. That's all we have to do.
Change consciousness.
Yeah.
I want to drive back still to the last animals.
Louder.
Oh, okay. The protection of biodiversity obviously is a hugely important aspect of climate change and protecting habitat. So I would just, what I had wanted to say, which may be a little bit off point, but in terms of, what I would leave you with, please watch The Last Animals. Please tell people about it. Please go on and take action to support legislation in the U.S. to help the last animals and support the Endangered Species Act. And also, a lot of you are connected to educational institutions, and that's really what we're focused on right now, is getting film more broadly into universities and in high schools. So if you're connected to any universities, come talk to me. We have an education distributor, and we want it to be in more universities. Yale has it. Brandeis has talked about incorporating it into curriculum, and we'd really like to see that widely across the U.S.
And I would go one step further and say that please support this woman and her work, and she has a 501c3. Tell them how to do that website.
Well, a separate thing, okay. I'm shy. So, yeah, I moved away from conflict to make this film. And in the process of making this film, and you will see in the film, there's several rangers who are killed in Garamba National Park, which is a park in DRC on the border of South Sudan. It's one of the most isolated places in Africa. It's also one of the most important. They have the largest remaining herd of elephants in Central Africa, which might seem like that could be a lot. It's about 1,000, so it's really not a lot. And these guys put their lives on the line. And so I set up a 501c3 with the idea that if the animals could thank the people who give their lives protecting them, that they would want to also make sure their families and communities are properly looked after. So we've been fundraising for a new school and educational center in Garamba National Park, which is about $70,000, and we're about $25,000 more to go. So anybody who wants to support that, we would welcome your support.
And your website is?
lastanimals.org.
lastanimals.org. If you want to make a donation and support Kate Brooks and her work, and please go see the movie. I highly recommend it. Michael?
Recently we got together with a group that we were in New York, and basically the mission of it was Brit Docs and Doc Society and Jeff Orlowski and the Unstoppable Project, and we all got together to talk about how we could really maximize film and or media, And that goes across films, long form, short form, student films, virtual reality, everything. And so on one hand, what I would say is if you are a group that needs to use media to help get your message across, there's a lot of films that are already made, and you can have conversations with us and we can help direct you toward shorts or pieces or films that once you get in front of an audience, it touches you differently, I think. And if you've got the right call for action and your website and everything ready to go, then you can use things that already exist. I highly also recommend when you can pay filmmakers to show their movies, so that if you can be a part of keeping them afloat, because they're artists and they're starving artists at that, and it's like journalism that's sort of going away, and if we don't all support it, then it's not going to be there when we need it. And if you think of all the things, but that's a big part of what we've been doing, is figuring out a way to match it. But what I would just there's an initiative that we're launching soon, Planet 911, and that's empowering youth through the arts to be able to tell their stories, particularly about climate change. So keep an eye out for that, and earthxfilm.org, so that you can be a part of our journey. But what I'd say is, if you can, come to Dallas and be a part of what we're doing in April. And it's really special to see film with corporations, nonprofits, educational institutions, and the government all sort of discovering each other and realizing that we can all be a part of working together. And I love that film and media can be that connector between all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, let's give him a big hand. All these wonderful filmmakers present, and the ones that